Call this meeting to order. First is the attendance review. All present and accounted for except Chris is excused this evening. Next, I have the acceptance of the minutes of the prior meeting. I have a motion to table the minutes until we have. No, they're in the packet. They're in the packet. I have a motion to table. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor? All right. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. So we'll table to the next meeting. Next is correspondence. We've received the notice of intent to prepare an environmental impact statement for the planned Access Northeast project, Spectra Energy, from the U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We received correspondence from the town planner in response to that notice. Tom, did you want to say anything about that?
No, not unless you had any specific questions. It was, a request to have see if they could examine the existing Spectra station that has been operating above noise limits, as we've learned,
right,
as part of this new project. So I put it. I did get a call from Barber Lane Trust Paul Rosselli. He just wanted to hand in to you briefly a piece of correspondence that he put to them also, so we can have it for our file.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chairman, I have that document right here, and happy to give it to Tom. I feel a little embarrassed being a conservation organization. There's about a tree and a half.
Did you give it to us in paper?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, next, under old business. Major subdivision land development, Invenergy Thermal Development LLC's Clear River Energy Center, Long Lake Road, Burrillville, map 120, lot 7, map 135, lot 2, map 137, lots 1, 2, 3, and 21, map 153, lots 1 and 2, master plan review, informational meeting with written and verbal testimony from the public, continued through June 20th, 2016. Yes?
I have a letter that I would like to read into the record. As you know, I am a member of the Planning Board of the town of Burrillville, having been appointed to that position in June 2016 by the Burrillville Town Council. The Planning Board has been asked to give an advisory opinion to the Rhode Island Energy Citing Board as to certain matters set forth on page 16 of the March 10, 2016 preliminary decision in order of the EFSB. In the matter of Invenergy Thermal Development LLC, the applicant. The applicant seeks a permit to construct and operate an electric generating facility in the town of Burrillville. The Planning Board's jurisdiction in this matter arises solely from the order. Prior to my appointment, I spoke against the granting of a permit to construct and operate the facility at 2 hearings conducted by the EFSB to hear comments from the public on the applicant's application. To the best of my recollection, those occasions were on May 10, 2016 and May 23, 2016. Again, to the best of my recollection, I voiced opposition because I believe the siting of the electric generating facility should be left to the local towns and municipalities. I may have voiced concern about the noise generated by the facility and its fit within the town of Burrillville's comprehensive plan, at which time I was not a member of the Planning Board. At the initiative of the applicant, via the assistant town solicitor, it was suggested I consider whether I have a conflict of interest in participating in the rendering of the Planning Board's advisory opinion to the EFSB because of my prior public statements in opposition to the EFSB granting of the permit requested by the applicant. As a member of the Planning Board, I have participated in 1 public hearing on the matter, which my participation was limited to asking questions of the experts provided by the applicant and the town of Burrillville. The Planning Board has not yet conducted any deliberations on its advisory opinion. My wife and I do own property, my home, approximately a half mile from the facility site. In conclusion, I believe the authority granted to render an advisory opinion is granted by the EFSB, and the adjudicator in this matter is the EFSB and not the Planning Board. By the very nature of the request, every member has a duty to render an opinion as an individual with the understanding of the facts, not to be held in fear of reprisal for voicing that viewpoint. However, to maintain the integrity of the board, to avoid the appearance of conflict of interest, and respect for the members of the town council, I hereby depose and say, in compliance with Rhode Island General Laws 3614-6-1, I recuse myself from participating in discussions with the planning board or taking official action relating to said matter effective immediately. However, I will be exercising my rights according to public forum exceptions, Rhode Island Ethics Commission Regulation 3614-7003 that states, no violation of this chapter or regulations shall result by virtue of any person publicly expressing his or her own viewpoints in a public forum on any matter of general public interest or on any matter which directly affects said individual or his or her spouse or dependent child. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, this evening, this is the way that this is going to go, just so everyone knows. The applicant is going to have three. Oops, sorry. Mute. Mute.
Thank you. We're working now? There we go. All
Can
right.
you hear me now?
Hi, can you hear me now? This evening I have, in addition to some of the witnesses that appeared at the last hearing on the 20th, I have available for questions from the board or through the chair from the public, Maureen Schlebeck on traffic and Mike Feinblatt on many of the environmental issues. I will be presenting direct testimony of Mr. Pimentel, who we were not able to get to on the 20th. I have one other expert, Bill Allard, the water expert, who's not available this evening. He'll be available at whatever next meeting you have. But tonight, the new direct testimony will be from Mr. Pimentel, our planner, who's really sort of a recap on the consistency with the comp plan.
Okay, thank you very much. So this evening, the applicant is going to present. At the conclusion of that, we're going to take some testimony from the public. We're going to take the original list. So if you signed up last time and you're still here, we're going to go in order of that because we were not able to get everyone last time. Once that is done, then we'll take anyone from this evening. So if you already signed up, you're all set. If you didn't sign up, do we have another list, Tom?
2 new people signed up on that list.
Okay, very good, thank you. So if you got in line last time, all is not lost. So without further ado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Initially, I'd like to start off addressing one question that Mr. Presbury raised at the last hearing regarding the survey, indicating that it was not in conformance with the new survey standards, which went into effect January 1st, 2016. I just wanted to clarify that I have spoken with Richard Lipsitz, who is a registered land surveyor. He indicated under those regulations, any survey that was commenced prior to January 1st, 2016 is still governed by the 1994 regulations, so at this time it is in full compliance with those new regulations. I just wanted to address that point.
Excuse me, yes, actually I believe that it's still not in compliance with the 94 regulations, since the plan is unreadable. You can't read the dimensions and the bearings. No surveyor or anybody would ever be able to do any calculations on the property according to the plan and referencing that plan because it's just totally unreadable.
A full-size plan? Have you seen the full-size sheet? I can provide you a copy with that because we I know we PDF'd a lot of this stuff, but if it didn't carry out, it is a full-size sheet survey that's been stamped, so I can send up full-size copies if you wish. Because I checked in with this, I have your testimony here, or your question rather, from that night, and he indicated to me it is in compliance with not only it is in compliance with the 94 standards, and does not need to be in compliance with the 2016 standards, since it was not only begun prior to January 1, but completed before January 1, 2016. So if you'd like, I can send up a couple of the full sheet hard copies if that would help you.
Yeah, that would be great. I would appreciate that, and you can do it through Tom and the planning board. They will
Absolutely. We'll get
forward
those,
to me, I'm sure.
we'll get those out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, as I said before, at the last hearing, we had a number of expert witnesses testify. Actually, there were a lot of witnesses. The town had their witnesses till about 9 o'clock, and then we put through a number of our witnesses, some of whom are present this evening. What now I'd like to do is have the testimony of Ed Pimentel. We have provided you with his resume, his curriculum vitae, and I'm sure as a planning board you're familiar with seeing expert planners. He is AICP, and will be testifying based upon what he's read and submitted, and also his fact that he was present at the hearing on June 20th. So, ready to start? In fact, actually, one thing, Mr. Chairman, before I start. Mr. Pimentel is ill. I don't want him too close to me. He came tonight telling me that he is sick and would like to go home as soon as possible this evening, as he will also be present at the zoning board hearing tomorrow night. So, do his testimony. Obviously, the board has questions, and then we'll take it from there. But if we could release him as a witness as soon as practical, that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Swear him in?
Do you swear witnesses?
They were sworn in at the last hearing.
The last one, and everyone was sworn in.
Stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Your name, please, for the record.
Edwin Pimentel, that's P as in Paul, I-M-E-N-T-E-L.
Thank you.
Mr. Pimentel, can you state your qualifications as a planner, please?
I have both a master's, a bachelor and a master's in urban and community planning. I've been an urban planner for in excess of 25 years now. I've worked in the states of Florida, Massachusetts, and all over Rhode Island as a municipal planner. Also, I've been a consulting planner for approximately 50 years now, so on a daily basis I work with that, both municipally and on the consulting side.
Thank you. And Mr. Pimentel, can you just tell this board what you were retained to do and what steps you undertook to prepare your analysis?
So I was given a description of the project, a rather thick document with various application materials and a collection of reports from various experts in the field, air quality, traffic, noise, etc., etc. So I took my traditional approach. The first thing I do is to well qualify the development proposal, and I do that prior to reviewing the respective communities' regulatory documents. Reason being is as you go through these regulatory documents, you're going to come across points that you know are the either performance standards or the goals and objectives that need to be satisfied to the respective boards and agencies. So I want to get a good grasp of the development and what's already been addressed to see if there's anything missing, anything that needs to be elaborated upon. And as this board well knows, there's been continuous addendums and additional information provided as we address these required findings. So my first goal, like I said, I reviewed the entire application and all the materials provided. I then subsequently visited the site, and then I carefully and thoroughly went through all of the pertinent regulatory documents. Mr. Kravitz, your town planner, was very polite to give us several sheets of what he felt were the pertinent goals and objectives, but I didn't. I put that aside because I really wanted to look at for myself and then cross-check to see where we were both on the same page. I accepted 30 pages of material from all your regulatory documents that I thought were things that were either right on point, other to those that were just nominally addressing the application of the proposal. And then from there, I prepared a rather verbose report that was 30 pages in length, because I just wanted to make sure that I addressed, there were so many different goals and objectives that flowed from this development. I want to make sure I touched on all of them. And then I, of course, followed up with an executive summary. Those that probably were more truly land use oriented. As a land use planner, we're kind of the quarterback that groups everything together for the respective boards to make sure that everything is being addressed appropriately. But the reality is you are relying on the various experts in their respective fields to address a lot of this, especially since in this particular case, there's a lot of scientific data. So when I would come across a particular point that from a land use planner, and I try to put on my municipal planner's hat, as Mr. Kravitz did, I would say, I wonder if this has really been elaborated upon enough. I would meet with council and various experts. They provide additional data, and that culminated finally in my report. So the first objective here was to deduce what is the development that's being put forward.
I just want to clarify, the report that has been submitted to the town is entitled Executive Summary, Edward Pimentel, Pimentel Consulting, Inc., June 2016. That's the report that Ed will be discussing tonight. We had, as he said, a more verbose thing that may include more. I made the decision that if we were having a preliminary plan hearing, and perhaps if we have a continued master plan hearing, but my idea had been that I would submit that fuller report at the preliminary plan, having Ed have had the opportunity to not only hear all of our experts, but to hear the town's experts. So at this point, that report hasn't been updated. We're going with the executive summary right now, and Ed was present at the, let me ask you that, Mr. Pimentel, were you present at the June 20th, 2016 Planning Board hearing wherein the town's and Invenergy's experts testified?
I was here the entire meeting. So my first objective and my first goal was to go to the Burrillville zoning regulation, zoning ordinance, to conclude how the particular development of the use is being defined, how it was being authorized from a use perspective, whether it's permitted use, etc., whether there were any performance, associated performance standards. And what I concluded is that the use in itself is a permitted use by special use permit in this particular zone, which, by case law, what that means is that it's a use that's already deemed a permissible use subject to reasonable conditions of approval. When the community imposes a special use permit, that's what they've concluded. So secondly, associated with a lot of uses permitted by special use is specified performance standards that are exclusive to that use. So that was my second objective. Went through the entire ordinance, seeing if there were any specified performance standards associated with energy facilities. There were none in the zoning ordinance. So then, what I had concluded was that within the comprehensive plan, because there are goals and objectives, I treated those almost like the performance standards, the citing guidelines. Things to do with the notice of company, air quality, noise, water, etc. So I excerpted those, although those were not explicitly within the zoning regs. I treated those almost like performance standards. I then went step by step with each of those standards, read the respective, again, followed with the respective review of the consultants, not only recommendations, but how they concluded their opinions. I also followed up with a peer review to make sure we're all on the same page. And what I concluded was that if you look through my report, with each of these specific goals and objectives, we have addressed them satisfactorily. We have addressed them satisfactorily to the perspective of what the comp plan calls for and what the zoning regulations call for. Air quality, noise. Some of the ones, like I said, when I summarized my report, that I'm not truly from a land use, but more from an expert with things to do with impact on floodplains and so forth. Those I kind of took out of the report because I really wanted to concentrate more on what would be my field expertise. So my end conclusion was, after doing a thorough review, is that we are consistent with the comprehensive plan, and we have actually noted and fulfilled and looked at every single goal and objective.
And again, that executive summary that we discussed contains discussion on specific policy points and objectives in regards to the comprehensive plan, correct?
That is correct. I looked at every single element, paying specific attention to the land use elements, the economic development element, and it was quite interesting that the comprehensive plan puts a lot of value on energy production facilities, and which is noted in my report, And therefore, it would logically follow that the community would treat this use as a use permitted by special use, given the credence and the support of the comprehensive plan, given the economic value of it, given that there are some uses in the town that are familiar with it. There was a lot of support within the comprehensive plan, and that's why I understood why they would have treated it as a special use permit in this particular zone. Secondly, this particular zone is the zone that pretty much comprises the vast majority of the town. So therefore, this would be the particular zone that you probably would situate such a use, because you're looking at necessary acreage, necessary for visual purposes, the aesthetics. You want screening and so forth. So you clearly would go with the larger lot areas, once again, being the zoning designation in question. And so it made sense to me as a planner why they would have imposed a special use permit on this particular use. The zoning ordinance is one of the regulatory tools that we use to effectuate our goals and objectives of our comp plan. Having annotated all the goals and objectives of the comp plan, it logically follows that the zoning regs supported the goals and objectives by treating this as a special use.
And so, Mr. Pimentel, in your professional capacity, do you have an opinion as to whether or not the Clear River Energy Center project as proposed meets the consistency requirements for the comprehensive plan?
I will answer that in two parts. Yes, in general, I do believe it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And then secondly, in regards to the specific area in question, there's been a lot of testimony provided as to why at this location. There's a lot of requirements that go into trying to accommodate a development of this magnitude, a development of this type. And the subject property in the area provides all of those amenities. From a land use perspective, it really provides them, because with the vast forested areas, with the vast areas owned by public entities, you help to offset, from an aesthetics perspective, the visual obstruction of the site. It also helps to buffer from a noise perspective, although it's being testified to that there will be no exceedance of the decibel level. But the point being is, the area in question helps to offset a lot of these concerns that perhaps would result from a production facility, and that's why I think specifically in regards to this particular site, it's quite appropriate and consistent with the comp plan.
And then finally, your June 2006 report was prepared, 2016, sorry, was prepared prior to the testimony on June 20th of the town's experts, correct?
That is correct.
Was there anything that you heard at that hearing or that you saw in the written reports that were provided to you that would change or alter your opinion as to consistency with the comprehensive plan?
No, it didn't alter my opinion, and also, it was interesting that night. Once again, I wear two hats. As a municipal planner, I'm also a code enforcement individual, and there were concerns and issues raised about noise, and can you guarantee and assure. And council was right. In the end, the scientific pattern assures us that certain things can be accommodated, certain things can be met, certain guidelines. But there's always the enforcement arm of that, and I do that on a daily basis. I can assure this board, when someone makes a promise to a board or an agency, they impose those conditions of approval. If those conditions aren't met, the enforcement arm will make sure that they're compliant with. I do it on a daily basis. Recent Supreme Court decision, which was my case, regarding a Pondview C&D facility, they couldn't comply with the conditions of the variance. The operation is pretty much null and void. And that's what happens when you don't comply. When somebody promises something, I can assure this board, it will be met, or the code enforcement arm will make sure it's met.
Thank you. I have no further questions for Mr. Pimentel.
Thank you.
My name is Bruce Barron. Questions I have for you with this, are you licensed or in the state of Rhode Island?
I'm a nationally registered urban planner. I took my national certification credentials in 1994.
Can't hear you, kind of angle this into your mouth a little bit.
I'm a nationally certified planner. I took my national certification back in 1994. Obtained my master's, worked so many years in the field, studied for the exam, took the exam, national certification.
Thank you.
It's a national, yeah, there's no there's not a requirement like there is for a professional engineer from a state requirement. The credentials just add the credence that you keep up into on your field. You take ethics and credits every year, so you keep up on current issues in your field.
I'm kind of curious, what plans did you review? What plans did you review?
Reviewed, I have the whole document here that I reviewed, and every time something new's come forward, it's been provided to me, I've reviewed it.
Okay, because we haven't really seen any plans per se. But the artist rendering we did see, kind of showed it close to the wetlands over there. So
Can't hear you.
if you're familiar with what I would be, those kind of laws that control construction near wetlands.
Louder.
I can't see how that would be something that would just automatically pass. So I'm kind of questioning like what plans you did see.
No, yeah. No, there's clearly going to be some necessary state permits required in regards to encroachment of wetlands and so forth. But that in themselves, we're addressing your comprehensive plan. In fact, when I was, and I want to state again, when I did my summary report, I stuck to those that would have been more pertinent for me addressing it from a land use perspective. I didn't want to cross boundaries into the wetlands biologist, so forth. It's not my field of expertise. But that being said, in your comprehensive plan, it notes that it understands that there may be situations where wetlands are going to be impacted. And as long as they're insignificant, then the state DEM is the regulatory body that will review that, and that would be acceptable. It's in your comprehensive, and it's in my report. So those permits will have to be obtained before this project can go forward. I think the distinctive difference that's unique about this particular development and the other development, if I was representing a client, I come before you for a major subdivision. I come before you for a major land development project. I was the land use consultant that worked on the Navigant Credit Union in the town of Burrillville. Clearly, we have to obtain and provide those state approvals to this board before we can receive final approval. The unique distinctive difference here is that those approvals will be obtained post this process, but the reality still applies. Without those permits, the project can't go forward. So unless we get an insignificant wetlands alteration determination, this project is not going to go forward. So we're not skirting any other regulatory that wouldn't flow with any other development that comes before this board.
Okay, so essentially then you haven't seen any plans, any drawn out plans, any survey plans at all for this facility?
No, well, I've seen all the plans that have been provided, but we're at a master plan investing stage right now. We're not at a preliminary engineered stage. So all those things are being worked out at this point. For a board to ask somebody at a master plan stage to already have those permits in hand wouldn't be true of any development project that comes before this board.
So that when the plans finally are done and properly surveyed and properly made and submitted, they'll be falling under the January 1st, 2016 requirements for surveying?
I think that's a slightly different question. What that question I addressed when I started was whether or not the survey that has been submitted to the FSB has been submitted to you was done and certified under the proper regulations. My answer and the question was, are the new survey regulations that are in effect, which is a technical set of specifications for land surveyors to follow, does that apply to the survey that had been previously produced to you? And the answer to that question is no. What needs to be complied with are the 1994. That will not change because it was commenced and finished before that.
That's where my confusion was coming from.
That's right. And so I think Ed's point, as we've made before, is that because we're at a master plan stage, we may not have everything ultimately engineered. We don't. But in terms of specific things, Ed, as an expert in his field, is not the wetlands biologist, is not the air guy. He's the one that collates all the reports, both from your experts and from ours.
Thank you. Last part is I keep on hearing about a special use permit that was issued to Ocean State Power for putting in a construction plant at its location, and they received a special use permit. I just wanted to make mention that Ocean State Power also went through the complete planning stage through the town of Burrillville. All right, this is not something that was dictated to the town of Burrillville by the state. They worked in conjunction with the members of the town.
And just on that point, Ocean State Power, I believe, it was before the Energy Facility Siting Board came into effect, which is this state legislation which we're under.
I just have a couple of very quick questions. I'll be brief. I know you're not feeling well. So I just want to make sure that I understand that you believe that this conformity to the comp plan based on two items that you mentioned, noise and air quality. So let's just address the noise for a moment. During our last discussion, we of course have had testimony and heard from experts indicating that at certain points where there is no chance that they're going to meet the 43 or even the variance to which has been applied for the 46, that they're going to meet that level. It feels like you're saying that there's conforming based on a guarantee, because that's what they're doing, they're guaranteeing. Am I to understand that correctly, sir? The consultants for the project have testified that they can satisfy the decibel level prescribed in your zoning regulations. I have to rely on that data, and that's the same type of response I heard from the peer review, that decibel level can be satisfied. Now, at some point, if there happens to be, like I said, a violation of that rule, then there'll be an enforcement of that, but that's not what I heard. I heard that they can achieve compliance.
We also heard that they can't achieve compliance.
Right.
So we can go back to the record and we can read.
What I heard was that some of them said that they had never themselves experienced meeting that decibel level, but they also did talk about older technology and other projects. They didn't talk about this particular project. Clearly, you can't talk about this project. It hasn't been designed or constructed yet.
How can you guarantee
So again, we're going back to the guarantee. So Mr. McElroy, I would ask you, sir, what is the enforcement? Should they break, should they go higher than the conformed DBA level?
I understand. My recommendation to the planning board would be that if the planning board issues a favorable advisory, that the advisory would be conditioned upon a specific requirement and a request to the Energy Facility Siting Board that they make it a condition of the issuance of the permit that they must, at all times, operation, startup, and shutdown, meet the 43 dBA, and if they do not, it is a violation of their EFSB permit. Why is that important? Because the EFSB, by law, has very strong enforcement powers. They've got investigatory powers and they've got enforcement powers. It doesn't have to be enforced at the town level. If we make it a condition of the EFSB permit and the EFSB agrees to do that, then they would have those enforcement powers.
And what are the specific penalties for violation?
I don't have the act in front of me right now, but I've reviewed it and I know that they're very strong.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to get those. Mr. McElroy.
I'd be happy to provide those. I'll email those around tomorrow.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to discuss was the air quality. And again, you've indicated that there is conforming to the comp plan. I only had 3 minutes to read this very brief document from the Department of Health, and they are indicating that they don't even have enough data to make a determination or recommendation whether it's going to meet the requirement. So how do you do that, sir? How do you say that the air quality can be conformed when I'm not sure who else that we can rely on. But I would just like your opinion about that.
Sure. I would have to let the experts in the air quality speak to the specifics of the information that's in the report. I, as a land use planner, would have to, A, accept that the conclusions of the report are correct, number one. And number two, I would also rely on the peer review. So if I was a municipal planner for the community, I too would be relying on the experts that I find, that we've engaged, the peer review. That's number one. Number two, very similar to the same situation with requirement that you're going to have to obtain a wetlands insignificant alteration permit if we impact wetlands. Same thing, if we don't obtain the necessary approvals to show that we meet the regulatory guidelines, whether it be DEM or DOH, EPA, etc., this project is not going to go forward. That's just a reality. And that is where I say is consistent. The comp plan clearly doesn't say, you know, if you meet it partially, it's okay. The comp plan doesn't mention the equality on a regional level. There's been testimony to that effect from both our experts as well as from your own, that these can be accomplished. And based on that, from a planner's perspective, I've got to say we're meeting the goals and objectives of your comprehensive plan, and we're consistent.
Yeah, Jeff, I thought this would be appropriate to take a minute to just reference, after hearing Ed. My memo dated June 18th to you guys as a board still stand on its own, and I want that formally recognized into the record that it kind of looks at the comp plan from a different perspective. It just recognizes that there are goals and objectives related to other types of links in the town also that the town is trying to effectuate. So, based on the amount of water resources that this power plant could potentially consume, there's just other things we have to look at there. And I think I explained it pretty succinctly in the memo, and that's just, I wouldn't change anything I wrote in the memo.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, nothing's in a vacuum, and if this comes online, obviously, it affects other things, so.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Certainly, and on that point, Mr. Kravitz and members of the board, our water expert was not able to be here this evening. To the extent there are more questions or to address that issue, he'll be available at the next meeting, as Ed will be there also.
Very good, thank you. Did you have any other?
I have no further witnesses. I just wanted to identify John Nyland is here also, as well as Alan Short from my office, and they're available for questions on that. And just one last comment before I turn the mic over to you.
Sure.
Is that, as to Mr. Woods, I just want to make it clear, we had pointed out to Mr. McElroy prior to the June 20th meeting, I think I learned around 5 o'clock that evening that Mr. Woods had been appointed to the board, and I, actually not me, but one of my fellow attorneys had remembered his name, that he had spoken in opposition. We did not request that he recuse himself. We did raise the issue on the 20th, just generally that he had been spoken against. He subsequently spoke against it again at the PUC. But I just want to clear on the record that Invenergy did not move to recuse Mr. Woods.
Let him know. Let him know. And to be filled, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, can Ed go home, or unless there's some direct questions?
The public's comments are valid, their concerns are valid. My escape wasn't to avoid any questions. I will be here in the future, I promise. If there's any specific question that the public puts forth, I am prepared to answer. I didn't want to think that I'm trying to avoid the public, because I'm not. Their concerns are valid, they should be addressed.
Understood.
Let's fire away then. Fire away.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I know what you would like me to do is you would like me to say, we don't want this power plant.
Right. Absolutely.
Here's my problem. If I say, we just don't want this plant, the Energy Citing Board can say, thank you very much, we're going to do it anyway. Our job, and the reason that we have this gang of fellows, and we have all these experts here, is to gather as much information as we can to put together an advisory opinion that if this plant does come into town, that we've thought about all the things that we need to think about in order for that to happen. The gentlemen on this side all live in town, as do I. It's going to affect their lives as it affects yours. If this plant does come, it doesn't matter if we say no or if we don't, it may come anyway, because we don't have the ability to control that. What we can control is the opinion that we can put forth. And that opinion is based on information that we're getting from our experts. The questions, the very good questions that a number of my gentlemen have asked. And all of that information will go into an advisory opinion. But I just want you to know that it isn't something that we can just say no. That's not our job. Our job is to determine whether it conforms with the comprehensive plan and the things that should be watched out for. And that's what we're trying to do. So it really doesn't matter whether we agree or disagree. What does matter is that we look out for the interest of the town when we do this. So I just wanted you to know, we may say some things that you may not agree with here, but the point is we're trying to get information so that we can put together the best advisory opinion that we can. We can look out for every single detail that we can possibly do and make sure that we keep the best interest of the town if this creature comes. Okay? So I just want you to know that that's what this process is all about. It's not whether we agree or disagree. What we're trying to do is we're trying to gather information to make sure that we leave no stone unturned if this power plant comes. Okay? So I just wanted you to know that.
Question.
This evening, we're going to go in order of how you signed up. Please address me, okay? And I will either have the applicant answer or we'll try to give you the answer to the number of questions that you may have. Your input is valuable. But please, this is about questions. This is about, it's not a just say no, it's a what if this happens. So if you can address your comments that way, then I think that would be helpful in this process. Yes, sir.
What is being done about the absurdly loud 43 decibel restriction now? It makes it unbearable to sleep at 43 decibels. Why is 43 acceptable?
We do have a noise expert who, if you ask a question here, then he might be able to answer that question for you.
Where did 43 come from?
Ask the question. It's a town ordinance. That's what the 43 is.
And you know it's absurdly loud for the residents, right?
I don't know that, but I have a gentleman right there who's really, really good at noise because I don't know noise at all. He does, okay? So he can answer that question for you, okay?
Can I sign up?
Tom? Yeah, Tom can do it. So if anybody has not signed up yet, you could get the list or check with Tom and he'll sign you up, okay? Any other general questions that I can answer for you? Let's get it going? All right, sounds good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have the answer to that question about the board's enforcement powers. Could I read the rules and regulations?
Please.
The Energy Facility Siting Board Rule 1.15B states in Section 1, failure of the applicant to comply with any provision, condition, or limitation contained in a board license to site, construct, or alter a major energy facility, failure to comply with a cease and desist order issued by the board, failure to pay lawfully assessed expenses, or failure to comply with a board order to remedy a non-complying order shall be grounds for suspension or revocation of a board license. So those are the powers that they have. It's the biggest hammer you can have to shove it down.
Jeff, the only thing I wanted to say is as people come up to either speak or submit written testimony, literally just slide the written testimony here to me on the stage. I'll come pick it up. And to the extent there are good questions there that we want the consultants to analyze from you, we're going to do that. Some stuff may have been answered, some stuff may not have been answered. But I want to take the written testimony. We're going to get those questions to our consultants before the next meeting.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to go in order. If you could come up to the podium, if you're not here, raise your hand. No. If you're, I'll give everyone a reasonable amount of time to come up. If I don't, if you are here, then Oh, yes. Then we'll go from there. And if you could limit your comments to 5 minutes, just so everyone has the opportunity to speak. Okay? So, you probably should. Okay. So I have a motion to open the public hearing portion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we'll now open. The first speaker, Richard Dion.